So before I start, I'd like you all to turn to your neighbor and briefly have everyone answer the question, what do you think about water in this region? Go. Question of our qualitative survey, so now you kind of can understand what our interviewees were in for. This is where I went, the kibbutzim located in the Arava Valley of the Negev, which is right here, as you all know, because you're here now. And we're in the desert, so as you also all know, there's an immense water scarcity here with very little rain. We rely almost completely on groundwater here. I also had 4 hypotheses. The main one that I found the most interesting in my interviews was that people who do not experience water shortage on a daily basis take water for granted. And the reason that this was so interesting to me was because here we are in the desert. It's rained once since I've been here for 4 months, and that was for 2.5 minutes, except for right now, apparently. But I've never turned on a tap and not had any water. And so I was wondering, how do people here who live in scarcity but don't feel scarcity feel about water supply? And my results were that, for the most part, people felt secure in their daily water supply, as I mentioned. They had concern for the future due to water depletion and pollution of resources, and because the groundwater we rely on here, it's unclear how much there is. No one really knows how much is left. And they believed that work needed to be done on both sides, the Israelis and the Palestinians, to effectively manage water in the Palestinian territories. Most people felt that infrastructure needed to be put in place to enable the Palestinian Authority to independently manage water, but that it is Israel's responsibility to help put that infrastructure in place because Israel's in a position of power. And thoughts for the future for my study is, I think further and more extensive surveys need to be done into water management. I think the most interesting questions are, what does making the desert bloom mean here? Is the Arava Valley relying on resources that don't really exist, like I said, in terms of how much groundwater is left? And when Frank did his presentation about growing the desert and the development of the Negev, is that sustainable? Is that an idea that's relying on resources that we have or we don't have? And I think there are fascinating comparisons to be made between the Negev and the West Bank that both experience water scarcity, but for very different reasons. And whose responsibility is this? And what is there to be done about ability to access water? For our whole group of the LifeSource project, what's next? Those of us who are staying on for the next semester plan to make a comprehensive comparison between the 4 groups. What perceptions are common between the 4 different study areas and what are different? What does everyone agree upon regarding water and what do they disagree upon? We like the idea of starting more water awareness groups for people from Israel and Palestine, and to build more sustainable ways of using water like cisterns and gray water systems that can be in cooperation with the idea that nature has no borders, like we talked about at the Arava. So we'd like to thank our teacher, Dr. Clive Lipkin, the LifeSource project, which is Alice Gray, Susan Koppelman, and Nashi Kanfer for all of their support and help, and especially the communities of Efrat, the kibbutzim, Yatta, and Aida camp for generously offering their opinions and being brave and bold, and all of you guys.
For any questions that anyone wants to ask to any of the presenters from the LifeSource group? Okay.
Hey, so I have a question for me. You talked some about the problem in Yatta, but you didn't talk so much about like what people like what the people's views were on it, or not even half, but it, like, did people see the problem as totally Israel's fault, or like, was it like really political, everything that came out there? Were they like, I was wondering what their opinions on it.
Actually, all my hypotheses were depending on what I'm getting like as answers for my questionnaire. Yeah, I contacted the interviewers and I asked them, and basically the whole problem is because Israel is controlling their aquifers. They're controlling the water that they are like, you are living over here, and here is the water, and you cannot touch it. So basically, it's a political thing. If you cannot touch the water, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Would it be possible to just create your own reservoirs, in terms of collecting the rainfall and using your own land for the? No, I'm talking a little bit more north. I mean, are there provisions that you can establish reservoirs in the West Bank?
The problem, even the people who have like built the kind of well that they wanna preserve the water, the rainwater, and they need money, and they are mostly poor people. So it is a problematic even to build it. So they cannot do anything else, and they don't have space. Their land is like mostly taken for settlement, so they don't have space. So the only solution for them is like to have access to their own water.
I want to ask you about the process of doing the work. Did you find it difficult interviewing people and leaving your own opinions behind? Did you find, how did you find it? Maybe it's the first time you're doing a poll. I noticed that you're Jewish, but interviewing the Jewish places, and maybe it should be the other way around, and sending pizza to a camp, I think is a wonderful idea.
Do you want pizza to come back?
Yeah, it was actually very hard to be objective, for me at least, knowing what my friends have been doing and what they've been finding, and not be emotional about it. But yeah, I guess I managed to do that.
We were trying as much as we can to ask that question and not to get them involved as like we are asking. Because for me, for example, when I began like talking to anyone, I was like, we are a group of 4, and Israelis, Americans, Palestinians, and Jordanians doing the same thing. So because of that, they want to give us the answer, the exact answer, and there is no way that you can emphasize like your own opinion if there is a problem, because there is a problem. It's not something that you are creating.
I think also it helped because we had an interview that we had developed with our advisors that had step for step what question you were going to ask and what was next, so you could have consistency throughout the interviews and you kind of knew where to go and you weren't just stabbing in the dark for questions to ask.
Yeah, it's the same for me. It's what's very easy to be objective.
Okay, 2 more questions. Michal.
Okay, I don't even know how to ask this, but what would it take to just put some pumps over there?
Put some
Pumps, that do something. Just to take out the water, not ask
You
anyone.
are not allowed to. If you touch it, you will be killed immediately. I went to one of the like the Efrat next to Yatta, which is considered to be part of Yatta, and in there they have like all the networks, they have the electricity, but for no reason, because of the army, they are not allowed to get any water within the networks, and they are not allowed to get electricity, and even their land, which is like next to their houses, they cannot access it. And if they went there to do anything, anything, to pick something from their land, they're gonna be arrested and beaten.
But if we start just building something and then one day there's...
Who?
You can't get the
We need a
equipment
permission
in.
from the Israelis.
Something is the business,
Okay, last question, Cecil, please.
How, you said you had a hypothesis and the results. That is based on analyzing the results in a certain way, or based on, it was quantitative, qualitative, what you heard. How did you come to your conclusions?
There was a qualitative survey, but we're still in the process, the paper isn't due yet, but coding the results, basically saying, hypothesis 1, these are the questions that we asked that would provide possible answers, and then, like, say, respondent 1 answered affirmatively to this hypothesis, and coding like that, and if most of the respondents answered affirmatively, then that was affirming that hypothesis.